What's up, guys?
What up?
What's
Good
up?
morning, man.
So I guess because Vinny has his limited time here,
Gotta fly.
we'll knock this shit out quick. So it's funny because obviously none of us have done this. You know what I mean? The most experienced person in the room with podcasts is behind the boards, Brian.
Yeah,
you know
thank
what I
you,
mean?
Brian.
So hopefully a lot of people that do watch this or listen to this, like, you know what I mean? If I forget to ever mention it in the future, you know what I mean? We have to recognize that Brian is hopefully going to be behind the board a lot with us, you know what I mean? And so he's the man back there.
You got to have the mad scientist in the room, dude.
Exactly, yeah.
And then I'm just here to talk.
And then real quick, you know what I mean? Because we are in limited time, I want to give props where props is due. Like Chad with Mentor Empire, and you guys Mentor Empire, and the whole Mentor program has got an amazing
This
studio
is their little
built out.
podcast studio right here.
And so we're we're sharing the space here, and this is pretty cool. And so, no matter what gets done out of here, you know what I mean? He's definitely done a good job putting it together.
Straight up.
And none of us are professional podcasters, so this is going to be fun. So, Jimmy, he volunteered to skip work a little bit to be here, and then obviously fucking Vinny works fucking 30 feet away. So, you're here, and then I drove to Vegas for this, so from California. But I wanted to...
That's what's up. That's Friday morning for you right there.
Yeah. So I only wanted to sit over here and start this because I started... I came up with this name that some people can't figure out. Other people think it's cool. And then I think my wife is kind of in between. She still doesn't 100% get it, but, but she supports it. You know what I mean? I don't think she's ever really got the name itself, which is, or maybe it's grown on her. But so to introduce ourselves, I guess I'll introduce myself first to the people that are watching or listening or however they'll see this, is that I'm Joe. I'm, Raised by Wolves is a sober project, so I think it's important to mention that I'm about 3.5 years almost sober, which is crazy to say that shit. Like 3.5 years to do anything is crazy. And then I have to do the math sometimes and literally look at like my leg where my sober date's tattooed, where I was going to tattoo a Jameson bottle at, now it's a sober bum jug that I drew up on the spot. You know what I mean? And so yeah, we got it's 3.5 years. And so I guess I'll start with the order of how I've met these guys. I owe a lot of my sobriety and shit just the way I think, and I don't mention enough how much I appreciate Jimmy. And so, I want to turn it over to Jimmy to introduce yourself, and I don't know, whatever tidbits of information you'd like to share.
Yeah, man. I'm Jimmy. Let's see, 3.5 years, man. That's a freaking really long time.
It's crazy, man.
That's
awesome.
crazy
to think.
I'm coming up on 21
shit
years from pretty ruthless crack cocaine addiction and alcoholism, and at the end it was anything you put in my hand I'd take, because I didn't like the way that I felt. So I knew that would change it. So I'm proud of you, man.
Thank you.
That's
straight
a
up, man.
long
Congratulations,
time.
dude. That's cool, dude.
Thank you.
Long time for dudes like us, right?
Yeah, I appreciate it. I really appreciate it, and I appreciate you, man. Real quick, Chris is our creative director that won't be in the shot. Is that door locked right now?
I think it's locked.
Locked?
Hey, Brian, would you do me a favor and just open that?
Dude, I'm so sorry.
I know it's little weird on the set, but
he's a big piece of what we're doing, and I think he wants to document what we're doing. As long as Christopher that won't be in camera, it'd be as quiet as a mouse.
Something too, a little differently and stuff.
But what's up, Chris? And but I appreciate Jimmy. I'm not gonna get choked up on this fucking episode of this first introductory podcast. But Jimmy, I met Jimmy, and I think I went over there just to do an introduction 3.5 years ago after a shit night of drinking and getting into a fight with both my ex and a fucking valet driver, and it's calling as Jimmy said it, and I use this all the time, calling myself on my own shit. I called Jimmy. Jimmy calls me back. I say, I think I have a drinking problem. Jimmy says, well, I'm the expert. You should come over and let me determine that. And so I meet Jimmy, and then I spend 4 hours in his office that day, and I'm crying, and I'm pissed off at myself, and I leave there this dude probably thinks I'm a bitch. You know what I mean? And so anyways, that's how that works. And so then the other guy here on the couch, big part of what we're doing is Vinny, never been able to pronounce your last name, Labandula. Lapadula. And so who are you?
So Joe and I were we were doing business together. I have a printing company, and he was opening up a store inside the container park. Came to me for just like some window decals, some banners, things like that. And at that particular time when we met, I was still drinking. Let's see, I think I was 41 years old at that time. And I was kind of interested in what he was doing. It was kind of weird because like I made these big stickers that said Kava. And I'm like, what the hell is this Kava stuff, you know? And he started explaining it to me, and he kind of gave me his little story about how, like, yeah, you know, I quit drinking. This was a product that, you know, I used to help me kind of go the ways of sobriety. And I was just like, all right, whatever. And I just kind of moved on. Never once from that particular moment even did any more research on it. It was just like, whatever, you know. We did a little bit more business from that particular point, and I asked a couple more questions. Then I actually started to kind of research it, and I was like, all right, whatever. It's from, you know, the Polynesian islands and stuff, and I had just come back from Hawaii, and I was like, all right, I love Hawaii. Let's see what's up. Well, after, and I'll do just a real quick version, but after a really bad, you know, night of drinking and going to see my doctor and him telling me, you're not going to see 50, and I was 41 years old, I was like, all right, man, maybe I'm going to go ahead and give this a try. And that's what I said. I said, I'm going to give this a try to stop drinking. And I did. And I remember 4 days later, I tried Kava for the first time. And I was like, all right.
Those are the Kava leans that we had, right?
Those were the leans. Yeah. I remember I mixed it with some Gatorade. And I went to a comedy show. And I was freaking out. Because I was like, this is the first time that I'm going out to do something in public and not having a drink. And my wife, she doesn't drink anymore now, but at that time she did. And so she's sitting there at dinner, she's having vodkas or whatever, and I'm not. And it's like that Kava kind of was that refill, so to speak, of where I was going to go. And then, hell, we just started being friends from that particular point. We were hanging around a little bit more, and all of a sudden you kind of came to me and you were like, oh, I remember what you did is you had me make stickers. And I was like, damn, that's a cool logo. You know, as a guy that's in the printing business, I saw it and I was like, yeah, that's pretty awesome. What is it?
Yeah, and it was our old logo too. Before
we had the different text. Yeah.
Yeah, before, we had a friend of mine, Aaron, you know, that had redone it after that, but it was basically the same logo with just different font. You know what I mean? But, you know, I remember I want to say I met my wife right around the time I met you, through sobriety at the Kava place, you know.
Exactly.
And you were 30 days sober, and we brought you a cake. Remember?
Dude, I actually think it was 30 or 60
60.
days.
You know what? It was 60.
It was 60
because you're 30 days ahead, I think, of my wife from sobriety, or behind.
Very,
right?
very close.
Yeah, very close. And so, it was like 60 days or something. We were out and about, and my wife actually, because she actually thinks of these things like before I do.
Yeah, thank you.
She said was like, you know, Vinny, because you guys' sobriety date's almost like exactly a month off, I think. Same like 30 days. You're either 30 days before or 30 days after her. And she was like, we should get him something. And I was like, and I'm not as meaningful as Jimmy is to give me a chip every year. So I was like, let me get this fool something. So I got a cake that looked like a chip, sort of. And so then I brought you a cake here to work. And you were like, damn, that's what's up. Like, you know what I mean? I just walked in. I was like, here, do you eat cake? Like, here's a cake. And then you're like, I'm diabetic. I'm not going to eat this shit.
You know what, though? It was straight up. It was the thought. And everybody in my office, too, was like, oh, there's some cake now. And I was like, yeah, you guys eat it.
I brought you guys some cake.
Yeah. And I think at that time I was like, I'm 43 now, but I was 41 then, and there was like a 60 on it, and people were like, "Are you fucking 60?
Yeah, good. Not drinking for these couple months has been good." You know,
shit.
That's crazy.
You know, it's kind of funny that you mentioned the whole 60 days too, and it's weird because when I say quitting drinking, I was like, "Let's give this a try," because there's on that day, I filmed a video of myself, right? And I filmed it. I don't think I ever showed anybody, or I don't think I ever posted anything. And it's like, I'm like, I think in the video, because I just saw it the other day, I'm like, motherfucking 60 days. That's what's up. Do me a favor, beer. You just sit over there.
Oh,
I'll be right back at you. Right? And I said that thinking, I'm trying this.
You told me that when you first stopped drinking, you were like, am I going to not drink again? I remember when you had the office downstairs.
Yeah,
if I'm not going to drink again, probably not. I'll probably drink again. But I was just like, you know, whatever. To each his own, you know. You might not.
Yeah. And it's kind of funny, too, because for about that first year, a lot of my friends too were like, you just trying something? Like some of my friends had gone dry for a year and they're like, oh, it's a great thing. You should do it. But then they go back drinking. And I was like, after about probably the 8 months, right? That's when I was like, nah, I'm planting my flag. And what helped me too is because my wife, she actually ended up quitting drinking.
I remember
after
you told
I
me
went
that.
2 months, she stopped.
Well, you told me like you said, oh, by the way, or something. My wife is like 30 days sober, and I was like, that's what's
we were
up.
at a show.
Oh yeah.
We were all at a show together. I think your wife had just gotten.
Yeah, that's right. I think it was like a Black Label Society, like when we first met.
When we first met.
And that's when she did, because it's funny, because when she did, she fucking planted the flag like instantly. Was like, no.
Some people can do that. Like I've met people even in the rooms, like they're like, I fucking quit drinking 3 years ago. I just one day woke up and was like, fuck this. And I was like, whoa. I guess I kind of did that, but yeah, that's crazy to hear with that, because with people that struggle with addiction, when I first got sober, I was like, these guys are lying. Like, they're going to start using it again.
Be somebody different. It was almost like, and it's kind of funny too when I say this, like identity wise, right? Because recently somebody was saying something, and I was like, well, I could tell my story about, getting sober. And he asked me, he goes, why is it that when people get sober, they feel like that's their new identity? And I'm like, I understand that there's some people that maybe it is, but also before I was not drinking, that was my identity as drinking Vinny. Mm-hmm. My nieces called me Drunkle Vin. You know what I'm saying?
That's funny.
So when I stopped drinking though, and this is where I was like, I didn't want to be that guy of like, oh, that's a sober Vinny over there or something, right? So like, that's where I kind of want to like nowadays change this stigma of like addiction's for real, no shit, right? And I know that I'm an alcoholic, you know what I'm saying? I have drug addictions and shit like that, but it's not what defines me or who I am. Or us.
Sobriety should define you, because it's fucking crazy to me. Like I've gotten that too. Like, dude, how come all you think of, all you talk about is being sober? I go, at first I was embarrassed a little bit to talk about that, because I was still hanging out with, I hate being proven wrong, and Jimmy's proven me wrong through this whole sober thing, is I was still hanging out with a lot of people that were drinking. And Jimmy told me eventually you're not going to want to do that, because you guys aren't going to have anything to connect on. So I was still going out, and they're like, dude, all you fucking talked about all night was being sober. I go, and it dawned on me, because I struggle with like ego problems, humility, and fucking patience for sure. And I was like pissed. I was like, what the fuck is wrong with these guys? Like, they just want me here. They want me to be the guy picking up the check. As Jimmy said, like the first day I met him, holding court, picking up the $1,500 fucking check. And I'm like, yeah, why wouldn't I want to be defined as the sober guy? I was talking about that because, I was defined before as the asshole that had to Uber to bar to bar to bar, and I'd leave my car at the first bar and that shit was funny to everybody. And then I quickly realized that I didn't want to hang out with these people. They can still be friends from afar, I guess, but like, I'm not about that shit. Like, I want to be defined as the guy that talks about sobriety a lot. I don't give a shit now. Like, because when I wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning without a hangover, and I can actually get my day started, and I can almost tell by how text messages and phone calls come through, like on a Monday, who's had a hard weekend drinking by who I still do business with.
That's crazy. Well,
you know what I mean? Because it's like, yeah, dude, it's hard. Man, I had a hard weekend. Fuck, it's 12, and I'm hearing from people. The people that are sober in my life, I can text them at 6 in the morning. The more than likely I'm going to get a text back at 6:30. You know what I mean? And shit. So it's like, I'd rather be that guy. You know what I mean? And if it put 20 years on my life, then fuck them. You know what I mean?
Amen to that one, dude. I mean,
that's kind of this podcast. I'm going to be honest with you. Like, and you guys know this. This podcast is because I've had a hard, not saying that they don't exist, but I've had a hard time finding a podcast or something that is going to be as real as I envision this podcast to be. Yeah. That you can, somebody that's like myself and like us, because I know everybody here, and I have to recognize, you know, I mean, we have some other people that are very involved with what we're doing, like Ian Lovelace, that'll watch this. Obviously, he's in Sacramento. Ian, he's a partner of ours. He's a musician. He's doing some great things. He's been sober for, I think, 10 or 11 years now, off heroin and hard drugs. Damn, most positive fucking person in my life, probably, minus maybe my wife, Jimmy. It's funny thing is, like, we're all part of this wolf pack for a reason. You know, obviously I got Chris, our creative director that's here, like taking pictures behind the scenes right now, kind of documenting this. But I could say that, like, I want there to be a podcast, not because I expect, I mean, if we get 4,000 followers, 40 million followers, whatever it ends up being, that's going to be cool. But the idea is that I spend a lot of my time now educating people on what kava is, what kratom is, what CBD is, what alternatives to alcohol and drugs are. And I thought to myself, because I'm a big podcast guy, we need to start a podcast so I can now say, look,
it's reference points. Huh?
There's reference points. Like, here's 5 minutes of my time, and I'll give you 5 hours if need be. But do me a favor, go listen to episode 6. We talk about why kratom, like, helps with opiate withdrawals. You know what I mean? Things like that. And so I thought that it was important to start this, and I thought that it was important that we start this introduction episode, I could say. I think this is pre-episode 1, I would say.
Yeah.
And we introduced Jimmy because when I got sober, it was like, I think there was a lot of people that I knew that were sober, but when I got sober and I wanted to start something personally, it was kind of a funny story, and I'm not sure if it was on camera. I can't remember if it was on camera today or not, but I was painting with 2 graffiti writers, because I've been painting for 30 plus years, graffiti. I was painting with 2 graffiti writers that night weren't drinking. Now, both of those guys drank still, and I love those guys. Like, they're like family and crew of mine. But they're that night we weren't drinking. We were drinking kava, and we were joking that we should start a graffiti crew that was sober. So I wrote "Raised by Wolves" next to my piece, and then later on, went home, kind of reworked the words, turned it into what it is now, how it's spelled now.
Abbreviation type, just a little cool or whatever.
Yeah. And then we had a kind of a breakfast get together with a couple sober guys, and Ian Lovelace was at that breakfast, and we started talking about creating, a program basically to help people kick opiates. I didn't personally struggle with opiates or drugs, but you guys did. Jimmy, 20 years off drugs that most people never come back from, you know what I mean? And then, and then knowing Vinny now, like, you've done a shit ton of drugs, even though alcohol was your
drug
choice.
Out there that I haven't done.
You know what I mean? And then, and then me, I've literally, like, other than some hallucinogenics occasionally, like, that was never my shit, but I drink myself to 315 pounds, very out of shape and very fucked up, and so I thought that it was a good idea that we, when I started drinking kava, I was introduced to kava. I knew 5 minutes after I started drinking kava that kava was going to help me stay off of alcohol. And so it was important to me that I did something with kava. And so for those that don't know what kava is, like, kava is a root from the Polynesian Islands that's made into a powder, basically. And the short of it is it's turned into a drink that tastes like shit. And we were able to turn it,
let's not sugarcoat
it.
So
we were able to, you know what I mean? And I got to give recognition where recognition's due. We went to Ninth Island Kava Lounge here in town, and they set us up with some kava. And I knew 5 minutes after drinking it, I was going to do something with kava because I felt chill. I was at that fucking place. So from day probably about my 10th, maybe roughly 10th day of being sober to maybe my 60th day of being sober, I was there every single day. They started just giving me the remote when I'd go in there. And I was spending like hundreds of dollars in there. The addict in me was like Googling shit, how to make kava stronger, like shit like that, because I drink so much kava, I was throwing up. You know what I mean? And it was like crazy. So I was drinking kava,
not realizing that you're doing the same thing you were doing before.
Exactly. You know what I mean? And so I started drinking kava, and then I realized, like, okay, we need to get kava involved with Raised by Wolves, because that'll help people at the very least get off alcohol. Then I had a battle myself, and I'm glad Jimmy was there to kind of talk me through the pros and cons of this, of like what to do with kratom, like, to bring kratom or kratom, and depending on who says it, into it, because I had mixed feelings about kratom, because of I'd always had it associated with, being addicted to that as well. And then I started learning, and it's important for people to know that kratom, if it's cut with tea and all the other shit it's cut with, can give you very severe withdrawal symptoms. Well, I personally, because I was the guinea pig for it, when I found out that there was actually good kratom out there, sourced a good kratom source that was pure, that was actually testing it. And I've purposely drank a lot of kratom for weeks at a time and then completely cut myself off. And it's been fine. But then, because I'm guinea pigging this myself, because there's no real test like out there that at least we could find, is that I've tried other brands of kratom, and then that I've known has been kind of the popular brand that will give you withdrawal symptoms, stop drinking it, and then had like a restless night because I'm having the same reaction to where if I was to drink coffee at 8:00 at night and go to bed. And so of course that's withdrawal symptoms. So then it was important for us to source and package and sell the right kratom. And then there's, now there's other things that we'll get into, like, CBD and even honestly incorporating cannabis in some cases to like help people like kick, withdrawal symptoms of heroin and things like that, because, I think that that's important. But I guess,
that's the cannabis heavy, and like, how that will like allow people to stop doing some other things that are hard is great, because you've never heard any stories of like somebody smoking too much weed and like beating their wife. You know what I mean? But as like alcohol, do it too much, there's bad things that are bound to happen. You know what I'm saying?
Weed is weed is not an entryway drug. Elliot, I just heard Elliot, he's the CEO of another cannabis company in California. He said something. He said cannabis should be considered the exit drug, because when you're getting off of drugs, you should be using cannabis. You could be using, not to say should, you could be using cannabis to get off of other things. And he's real big about pushing that into the lower income communities that even his stores are in. You know what I mean? Like, look, get off that fentanyl, get off the fucking crack, smoke weed kind of thing. You know what I mean? His approach is a little different than mine would be. You know what I mean? But he's not approaching it in a sobriety environment. He's approaching it like, hey, you guys are all fucked up on other stuff. Come buy my weed. You know what I mean? But, you know what I mean? But I do know personally, and Ian being one of them, people that say that they attributed a lot of, and they attributed getting off of heroin basically, and those withdrawal symptoms, very high levels of THC. Like Jimmy has a whole protocol that he wrote for us about that, on how that would like kind of work, But I think with the rest of you know what I mean, like the next 10 minutes or so, like that, like I mean, like Jimmy, like what's a little bit about, we just kind of took this whole thing over, and you're the most educated guy in the room about addiction.
For real, right?
I mean?
And especially with the length of time of sobriety.
I mean, I was listening to you talk about identity and sobriety and all of that. And sober is not something that I do. Sober is something that I am. And it's a lifestyle, and it's a culture, and I identify with it. The longer that I've been removed from active drug addiction, the less I find identity in like counting days. And again, you should count days, and you should get chips, you should do all that because it's milestones and it's an incredible.
It's goals of reach.
It's,
and I think
it's
that's what
huge.
keeps a lot of people going to.
It's a way for drug addicts and alcoholics to get we crave recognition as well. When we're doing something right. I remember when I got 30 days the last time, right? So I'd had 30 days before for decades. When I got 30 days the last time, I called my sponsor. I was all sad, man. My dad, he didn't even recognize that I'd been sober for 30 days. I was in his apartment hanging out. I was in treatment at the time. My dad was worried if I was still going to steal his change, like he's like looking around the corner like, what's that dude doing? And all I wanted him to do was say, hey, man, you got 30 days? That's amazing. But I'd had 30 days before.
Yeah.
But I'd never had 30 days like this. So I called my sponsor all crying. He's like, bro, you want a parade? And I was like, dang, man, you're right. I do. And he goes, dudes like me and you, we get paraded in front of judges. He said, go to the room. Right? I was like, oh, dang. He said, go to the rooms and get a coin. So that part to me was really critical in the beginning. Grounding my identity in sobriety, grounding my identity in who I was, because I was always Jimmy the dude that fought, Jimmy the dude that was so wasted it was insane, Jimmy the dude that would drive his car and park on the lawn. I was that dude. And then I'm sober all of a sudden. And I was scared of sobriety because I thought sobriety was going to be a bunch of old dudes smoking cigarettes and drinking coffee. I was 31. Oh my God, what am I going to do? Now for me, sobriety is so important. Sobriety, being around sober people, letting people know that sobriety doesn't have to suck. It doesn't have to be a bunch of old dudes sitting in a circle smoking cigarettes and drinking coffee. We can do life together. We can experience a life that is full, deep, and abundant. We can have really great things because we don't pick up. And it begins with not picking up, and then it changes. So the other piece for me is when I got sober, I was scared of who I was. I was scared of who I may become.
Is that you think that that's a normal thing?
Yeah,
because I think we've all struggled with that. I've struggled with that.
Like,
I didn't know who I was not drinking.
I didn't know how to be sober. And when I got sober, I was married to a lady for 4 years, so I'd never known sober. I got a 9-month-old kid who the government's given back to me because we lost custody of her because we were drug addicts. And they're like, hey, dude, you got 9 months clean. You're great. Congratulations, go, man. I was scared to death because I didn't know who I was and I didn't know who I could be. I had been told my whole life I was going to be nobody, nothing, penitentiary or death. I was on my way there. So I was freaked out. Now, I think the message that I want people to hear is sobriety can be really cool. Sobriety can be really fun. Sobriety can be really life-giving. And yeah, is it scary? Sure. But man, the benefits of being sober and being around a sober bunch of people all the time is really cool. Now, I still go to a lot of concerts, still go to places where people are getting tore up from the floor up all day long. But if my motives are clean, I can go anywhere I want.
No shit.
Yeah,
and that's
right.
it. When you have some time under your belt, I think that it's not even a thought. It's not even a thought anymore. Like if I go to a bar now and like those shows like we've been to, there's not even anything that I don't even have a thought about drinking anymore.
Yeah, I'm
it's
not
even
worried
a
about
thing.
Actually, in the first year, would still, because it's funny because like some of my friends wouldn't invite me to like some dinners,
Yeah.
or because they were like, it's going to be at a bar, and I'm like, no, don't push me aside, bring me, put me there. I'm fucking here to wrestle with the lion. Put me there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I would purposely sit there, and it's funny because like some of them would be like, is he gonna fall? Is today today? It's fucking drinking Vinny back.
I still have that.
It's drinking Vinny back.
I still have that.
And I would order a Diet Coke.
I painted with somebody not that long ago, and they were just like, dude, you want a beer? And I'm like, I don't drink beer. He's like, not even Michelob Ultra? You don't even want to make I said, is it a beer? Motherfucker, unless it's a root beer, and I don't technically drink soda. I'm not drinking it. And he's like, well, I guess that would still be drinking. I go, what do you mean you guess? Motherfucker, is there alcohol in that can? Like, and he was like, dude, my bad. Like, you know what I mean? I was like, I don't drink.
Yeah.
You know, I like how you said that sober can be good and cool, because I think when you're watching this or when you're drinking or whatever, and if that's your get down, that's your get down. But the thing is that sober can be cool, and not in some cheesy ass like you hear when you're growing up, like, hey, like school can be cool kind of way.
Yeah.
No. Sobriety can be fucking cool because you have more of your day, you have more of your life, and you can fit more into a day without feeling like you're rushed or you're nursing a hangover or you're nursing shit to like get through it. So it can be cool because like I'm 44 right now and I'm painting, I'm running, anybody that researches this fucking episode can know, like, I'm running a fucking publicly traded company. I'm starting this kind of like bootstrapping this with you guys. I'm getting involved with mentoring, with hopefully a lot more, even with Mentor Empire here. I'm mentoring people. I have a consulting business. Like, I'm doing all this different shit, and I'm painting more actively graffiti than I've painted since my 20s. You know what I mean? And so, and the thing is, and I'm fitting that all, and I'm
commentate all of that,
and I'm still finding time to go home and spend quality time with my phone on the charger with my wife. Not as much as I'd like to be doing, you know, but the thing is that, and I'm now gearing myself up because I'm getting my body tuned right, like, to do so many other cool fucking things in the next couple of years that are either sobriety driven or because I'm sober I'll be doing. And that's the cool shit about it, because it's crazy. Like, it's crazy that, like, it's hard to even, unless you're actually fucking sober and you're actually going through the, like, I don't want to say the steps, because I didn't even technically really do the steps. Well, yeah, he kind of sneaked me through the steps. He kind of sneaked me through the steps.
That's funny.
But I think that it's important, not to pivot, but we have a little bit limited time. I think that going to meetings was important. It didn't need to work for Vinny, so Vinny never went to the rooms, but Jimmy told me to go to 90 meetings in 90 days. I went to about 60 meetings in 90 days.
Well, you know what
I mean? And being in the rooms were important, like, you know what I mean? But it was more of the trying to figure out, like, where my identity was going to be with sobriety for me. And that's why I wanted to go. I wanted to see what the hell this whole thing was. Plus, I was following kind of a rule book that Jimmy had kind of put in place. Like, hey, go to the meetings.
Bit of a structure.
Go to the meetings and see people. And I still will go to meetings. My wife, when I met her, she was going to meeting once or twice a day when I met her. And I met my wife. Another cool thing about fucking sobriety, I don't have to wonder if my wife is going to go off the rails and go out and get fucked up or cause a scene out, like I've been with other females in the past. And you know what I mean? I don't have to worry about that because my wife is sober. My wife is healthy. My wife is like, she has a sometimes unhealthy habit of ordering Taco Bell for us or something like that. But other than that, like my wife is super happy.
It's not just a 4 a.m.
Our relationship is better. Right. And I met her and I met my wife through sobriety. Like my wife was a few months sober up front, when I met her. So like life could be fucking great, sober.
Speaking of, that's like the three of us all have wives that don't drink, right? And would you say then that makes your relationship better?
Fuck yes.
Because I mean, could you do you think you could still be with a woman?
I already know you're gonna ask. Like I can't. I'm telling you right now. Like I seen a girl for about a week, like in between, like a girl that I was hanging out with, and she still drank, and she kind of hid it from me. Like I knew she drank. She was admittedly said she would drink wine and shit. And this is I'm not gonna put her on blast, but basically like she got a fucking DUI 2 days into me like hanging out with her. And I told her the day that I picked her up from jail the next day, and because she had hidden the fact that she had went out the night before and not told me. She said she got a DUI. She called me on the phone and said she got a DUI going to McDonald's. But I picked her up. She's like in club attire. Do you even know this story?
Nah. It's a hop in McDonald's though.
Yeah, and I was like, what McDonald's did you go to? So she was embarrassed, and she's like, she's like, oh, and I wouldn't blame you if you wouldn't want to be with me. And like, little did she know, like I was gonna let the day of her day calm down. I went with her to go get her car, referred her to my lawyer here in Vegas, and broke that shit off with her. Like, stopped seeing her. I never was officially with her, but in my mind, I was like, this is why I don't fuck with people that do drugs and drink. Like, you know what I mean? Because there's a girl that I've been friends with for like 5 years that I entertain the idea of going into a relationship with. And 2 days after we say, why don't we try dating? She goes and gets a fucking DUI. Like, I'm just like, wow, like this is why you lied to me 2 days into us hanging out about going out. She said, I just didn't want to make you mad. And I was like, I'm not doing this shit. Like, this is wild. Like, no, I'm good. Like, So yeah, I couldn't do that. I barely can hang out with friends that drink.
Well, and to speak to that, sobriety can also be really hard. Just because you're sober doesn't mean that life shit doesn't stop happening.
Yeah.
So because
you have feelings now.
Yeah. And because my wife is sober and we both, that's what we do. When hard shit happens, it's so much easier to navigate that with a partner who's not anesthetizing, with a partner who's not, well, I got a solution, boom, because that used to be the solution, right? Whether it was good or bad, that was the solution.
You celebrate your wins and your losses with whiskey and cigars. That's what I used to say. I used to say that. Whiskey and cigar,
it was the hard one for me was Friday afternoon at about 3:30.
Yep.
Right, and then
because you smell the weekend,
right? For that 2 months, because Amber quit 2 months after me. For 2 months, she was still picking up, big bottle of wine daily. Tough. And I was like, what was cool though was on a Saturday when I was getting up and going on a bike ride for some miles and stuff, she was still sleeping. That was the pushing factor for me, right? Now, whenever she quit and together, now it is that Friday. What are we doing sober together? Yeah. Hitting a movie or something, or some of those other things. So I get it. It's you're right. It's crazy that we do it now with our partners. You know what I mean? But for a while there, because it was hard for her, like stress wise with her job. I'm like, babe, have a drink if you really, you know what I mean? And she's like, no. And I love her for that because like my quitting drinking was because my health was really bad. Her quitting drinking health wise also was because her lifestyle was getting bad. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, well, it was lifestyle. I can't say it was only my health too. I was a bad alcoholic, right? No matter how I wanted to chop it up, I was. I can't just be like, oh, I was a diabetic and didn't want to die. No, you were a fuck up too. You know what I'm saying? So like, it's great now. Yeah. You said the two of us.
You can still be a fuck up and sober.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, this is true, but those days are a lot less now. You know what I'm saying?
And I think about Raised by Wolves. I remember the first time we talked about the name Raised by Wolves. And because I know your background and because of my background, I was like, man, this is really cool because I wasn't raised by awesomeness.
No.
I was raised by some ruthless fools.
Yeah, me too.
And we were, that's what we did.
Yeah.
And my parents weren't real. I love them to death. Rest their souls. They did the best that they could. but they didn't do a great job.
Well, not the shit you see in the movies, man. It
Yeah.
was no Wally Beaver
So-
shit.
Mm-hmm.
The Raised by Wolves piece resonates so well with me because my background, I don't regret what happened to me. I'm not sorry for anything that I went through. It's made me who I am. But man, to be able to know that there's people that I can resonate with because of stuff that they've been through, and now that they're sober, man, the wolf pack piece, like
Yeah.
I don't want to be the lone wolf anymore, man. I want
For
to
real.
run with a
Yeah.
crew that is positive, putting life into other people and saying, hey man, you don't have to live that way anymore. You can live this way. Try our way of life for 1 year. And if your
Yep.
life's not a lot better in 1 year, shit, we'll refund your misery for free.
Yep.
You can have that shit back for free.
That's a good one. I like
Yeah,
that.
exactly.
But let's-
Very fun. That's so funny that, and I remember you told me that the first time I drank, that I seen you.
Yeah.
It's like, try being sober for a year, and it will give you back your current life. I'll give you back your current life. That's funny.
Our way of life's not better. If your life's not better than
Yeah,
the way that we're suggesting that you can live in a year, then fuck it, go back.
that's crazy. It's nuts. I had a friend, and I think it's important to cover this real quick, is I had a friend recently to say, like, so what would be my involvement with Raised by Wolves? Like, how do I join this thing? Not really knowing what it is, and that's why this episode is so important. I said, dude, are you sober? And he's technically not. He drinks a little bit of this. And I said, well, dude, you are sober, and you want to fucking help other people get sober. You're part of the wolf pack. It's about as simple as that.
Yep.
Like, there's no program, there's no things. We do have some things in the works to where we want to start doing a mentorship class like every month. Southern California, Las Vegas. We'll talk about that a lot probably on the first episode. You know, I want to eventually bring our spouses into here. You know what I mean? I have some really cool fucking guests lined up for the podcast. I think, that are sober, that are, influencers in their own right, musicians, writers, fucking skateboarders, like things. And then, and then sometimes just us just chopping up, just talking about just different shit. But I think this is an important.
Who we are, what we do, where we're going, you know what I'm saying? Just life, you know what I mean? So like there's like
And
so
we're not
much
doing
more.
it alone.
Yeah, we're not doing
That's the thing, dude,
That's
that
the
wolf
piece.
pack, right?
Yeah, man. It's
because there's not many crews. This is, if I had to compare this to like a crew, because I was, we were, I've grown up most of my life in crews, being in graffiti.
Mm-hmm.
And
Graffiti,
and I
skate
love,
crews, all
and
that.
the precursor to this is that I love my crews that I'm in, but this wolf pack is not a crew. This is a way of life, organization.
it's a
Like, you know what I
culture,
mean?
lifestyle.
It's like a cult, if you will, but in a good culty way. You know what I mean? It's like we're gonna
We don't
stay
drink
sober.
Kool-Aid, we drink kava.
Yeah, exactly. Not Kool-Aid. So the whole premise to the podcast, and I know we got to cut it short pretty soon here so you can get to the airport, is that it's Raised by Wolves. And my whole thing, and this could change, working title is like, now you're sober, what next? To incorporate not only, okay, cool, you're sober, but like to talk about when you're sober, like writing resumes, learning financial literacy, fucking getting in shape, like eating right, doing all the shit that like comes after being so. After you've like you said, planted your flag and said like, I'm sober. Like, what do I do now? Well, now there's a lot of
How do you
motherfuckers
stay
that don't
there?
know how to write a resume. 2023, they're in their 40s, don't know how to make a resume, don't know how to upload it to Indeed. They don't know how to create a skill for themselves. Like, the American dream is not dead. The American hustle is definitely like on life support. And I know that's like some clever, like little catchy thing to say, but it's fucking true. Like, I have a homie right now that's making $1,000 a week delivering Uber Eats that a couple months ago was like, dude, I just can't find a job. I'm like, we live in a fucking society that you can download an app and go make money. Like, dude, don't give me ever that bullshit that you can't do something with your life.
Well, as addicts and alcoholics, how hard did we hustle to get the next high?
Exactly.
Oh my God.
To get the next drink.
I always had
You
booze in
apply
my house.
10% of that hustle to
Yeah.
sobriety.
Yeah.
I got to thank
You
Dollar
don't ever
Loan
have to
Center
do
for a lot of cocaine.
$1 Loan Center deal. Yeah. So I can, but I think that, we're technically, you need to leave here by 11:15.
Got to catch a plane.
Yeah, so I think if you guys, unless you guys have anything else to say, this is a good introductory episode. I think that we got about 5 minutes before you have to leave, 5-10 minutes, I think, because I can get you over there like in pretty quick. I mean, we're next door to the airport.
Only thing
And Joe drives a race car.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
true.
right. Or a Challenger over here. I just want to say thank you.
Man.
And to
no,
both
thank
of you guys. I mean, because without you, he wouldn't be who he is. And it wouldn't allow me to be who I am. that domino fell like that. And it didn't stop with me, you know, it to my wife. And, you know, you said like, I didn't go to meetings. It wasn't a thing. But if you think about it, ours were meetings.
Yeah, you were at the
You know what
Kava
I'm
store
saying?
every day.
I was
Every
kicking it.
day. So you might have done
around.
90 days, 90 meetings.
You
in
know what
90
I'm
days.
saying?
'Cause those days at the Kava store were meetings.
That's
Like
what
one time
were
we
doing.
sat in there. I don't know if you remember. We all sat in there, and it was like a couple of the musician friends that we know, and everybody's sober, and I think it was Tanya that we'll eventually probably have her on the show too. You know what I mean? Because she was like the Kava tender for us. You know, introduced me to my wife. You know, I gotta have her on the show. You know, and so. She said, this is a meeting. We're in a meeting right now. And I was like, shit, we've been here like talking about the weirdest shit. I mean, we were all sober, but we were drinking kava doing it. And it was like, there's a meeting. Chris was there. Like, you guys were there. Like, you know what I mean? And it was a meeting. Customers coming in. We're helping customers. Shit, but it's like a meeting, you know?
Right.
My wife and me talk about that. Like, some of our conversations back and forth to California in the beginning were kind of meetings. She was newly sober, and I was talking to her about the things I've done to cope with being sober, like on there, you know what I mean? And then my wife has helped me. There's times like just recently I felt like shit. I never thought about, I did think about drinking because I was going through some shit with medication. It wasn't anything to do with like, you know, like wanting to drink. But I remember my wife saying like, you know, you're such a influence to other people. And like other people kept me sober without even realizing, because I couldn't be the asshole that was preaching one thing and then like have these dark thoughts of like, man, it'd be a lot easier if I took a shot right now. God is weird. I went to a movie out here and I ordered a seltzer water with cherries like I normally drink. Dude brings me an alcoholic drink. I took a sip of it. I immediately like, fuck is this? Did I tell you this story? And then I got up like irritated. I was like, fucking walked over there, threw it in the trash, said, hey dude, like that had booze in it. I'm sober. And the guy's, oh, here's your drink, this and that. I was going through some shit that day. That's why I went to the movie by myself. I could have just as easily, no one in the world would have known. I'd have just finished that drink.
Just been like, you know,
but I was irritated that he even brought it to me.
Thing.
I was like, what the fuck, dude? Like, this is some serious shit. Pay attention to that shit. People are sober for different reasons. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, that's like, you know, like, I don't know. I go off for, well, many episodes to come. But thank you guys. Like, I love you guys. I love, you know, I think you guys are fucking, there's a reason why we're doing this together. And we're going to hopefully, you know, change a lot of lives. I think this is like needed content. And thank you, Brian and Chris and fucking everybody and Mentor Empire. And you'll hear a lot about that. And fucking, I guess that's a wrap. Thank you guys.
Yeah, man.